Kia ora koutou, haere mai, and welcome along to Jazzy Ovaries, a podcast where I, potentially, actually not overly menopausal at all, Penny Ashton, learn all I can about what happens when your ovaries stop being showy and start being shy and retiring. A quick reminder, as always, that I am not a doctor, though I did enjoy the wind in Perth, known as the Fremantle Doctor, when I was doing shows there, because it's so freaking hot and that breeze cools you down. Yes, these links are becoming more and more tenuous. But if you need help with your bits, go and see a medical professional. But if that doctor blows a breeze on your area, I suggest you ring the medical council. Today's guest is not a doctor, but her soothing, mellifluous tones have been just what the doctor ordered for hundreds and thousands of audience members for the past 25 years or so. That's right, isn't it? 25 years? Yep. She has had numerous residencies in venues all over Auckland, has been the vocal coach to everyone from True Bliss to yours truly. She has appeared in so many festivals, numerous band incarnations, and warmed up the big day out for Courtney Love. She lent her voice to one of my favourite jogging tracks, Let It Go!
Yeah, baby.
Can you burst one of those out now, or is that going to be too obnoxious and you haven't warmed up enough?
Let it go! Something like that.
Yeah, that's so. And it makes me want to start jogging, which is hard, actually.
It's a Pavlov's dog kind of response, isn't it?
It really
That's
was.
Amazing. Okay.
By Concord Dawn, and has released numerous albums herself. So it is my very great pleasure to welcome the Queen of Jazzy Ovaries, or as she puts it on her Facebook profile, song poet, story singer, vocal coach, writer, performer, and appreciator of miracles. So please welcome the miraculous Caitlin Smith.
Kia ora.
Kia ora. Hello. How are you doing?
I'm all right, actually. I'm sipping on my maca medicinal mushroom cacao right now. So.
Yes, and so this is for hormonal balance. Excellent.
And it's great. And things I find out, you just don't find out these things.
Yeah.
At 50, I wish I knew.
Yeah.
In fact, particularly with hormone balance, I did have painful periods from the word go.
Right.
And that was debilitating to the point where I'm right in there, by the way, hitting the ground.
You
running
are. Look
here.
at that.
With my cycle was 3 weeks of PMT.
Oh.
And then 1 week of period.
Jesus.
So that was not ideal. And I went to a doctor.
To put it mild.
Yeah. And they actually suggested that I go on antidepressants or anti-anxieties because of course they're just going to prescribe, it's candy. It's just candy. But what I didn't realize was that hormones are this mystical thing that just are not studied or researched properly because they're so difficult to analyze, discern, and be, I guess, scientific about, because they're so part of our thoughts control who we are. Our thoughts control our bodies. So our minds control our bodies. Very, 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 that's not woo-woo. That's actual fact. And the crazy thing about menopause is I so wish that I could speak to a younger self and say, hey, why don't we sort this out? Rather than having every month sort of really dreading the onset of the first day, which despite the fact that I had a perfect 28-day cycle, I'm also calculexic. So it would always come as a complete surprise, like absolutely ruining articles of clothing, wearing the white pants, whatever it was. It was like, oh my God, what a surprise. And it's like, duh, how many years? Like at least 3 decades, right?
Yeah.
Where it was a complete surprise to me, even though it was actually the most regular 28-day cycle, because I couldn't count, Right. I actually even have difficulty still counting to 5. Anyway, what I realized with the...
Sorry, how do you do a 5, 6, 7, 8?
I don't. I actually confuse the band and sort of go 1, 3, 12, whatever it is. I just skip numbers from time to time. And It's a thing, but that wasn't diagnosed either. I mean, like we have all sorts of awareness now, like with my special need of being legally blind, I was mainstreamed at school. They didn't have special needs, right? Yeah. So it's nice. I guess I shouldn't get bitter and twisted about the fact that, hey, no one talked about it, the red tent, or actually sharing of that knowledge. But perhaps some cultures do talk about menopause and do talk about, hey, hormones, as if that answers all your questions, but it doesn't. Like, when I, in 2012, was hospitalized for the palpitations that just would not go away. So I was sitting on tachycardia for hours and hours and hours and hours.
Oh, gosh, right.
And about 140 BPM. So they liked the fact that I gave them all the information they needed to have the diagnosis of having what's called an adjunctive heart, which means the atrium and the ventricles aren't talking to each other. That's what they were saying. So they actually did all the machines that go bing and have all the electrodes all over you. Electrodes. And then I couldn't believe that the ablation therapy doesn't work because a friend of mine in Wellington actually had the same condition, heart condition, and it came back after she had the ablation therapy. And I was like, that doesn't work. Okay, good. Phew, I won't have to do it. But at the same time, because I've been doing traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture since 2006, when I was really suffering really bad insomnia and depression, which has been with me all my life. So It's funny that, though, when I say all my life, suicidal ideation happened first when I was 12, when I started menstruating. So there's actually, I haven't put things together. I'm a very, very slow learner. But what happened with the acupuncturist, so they were able to work on the cyst on my vocal cords that I had in 2006, just randomly. So they really work. They were ninjas. I can't understand how they do what they do, but they do. But when I did have this heart condition, and the medical professional was like, we don't know, they actually have you do this maneuver, which is basically blowing your cheeks up, putting your finger on your mouth and just making puffy frog cheeks. And that's supposed, and it's like, oh, you know what? I do that anyway, but are you sure that's all you can do? I mean, as the medical professional, with anyone, okay. But what happened was, I go to the acupuncturist and they say, oh, it's hormones. And I think, okay, what does that mean? I was relieved to know, because at least I've got a diagnosis that actually makes sense. But then I realized actually around, and this is going to sound woo-woo, but it's fucking true, around the full moon, I would have the tachycardia, the palpitations.
Right.
So the only thing, to be honest with you, that works is a Weleda homeopathic called Cardiodorum. And sometimes... So breathing difficulties and heart palpitations are the side of menopause that nobody talks about.
Yep.
Which is the reason why when they said hormones, I just went, hormones, because this is in 2012 and I wouldn't have thought hormones for me because, I haven't got children and sort of, I guess, the whole ovaries just went, you're not using me, love. We don't have to be here, really, honestly. What do you need us for? Well, it turns out the estrogen and progesterone, which are the light and fluffy things. So, the big story for me, and you haven't even asked a question yet, and I haven't stopped talking, sucker, anyway, was that when I went on tour last year, I absolutely tanked. I melted down. So that was an Arts on Tour, which was 22 dates throughout New Zealand. And I was I was uninformed. I did not realize, even though I was kind of on Harmony Menopause, the herbal things, what people don't share necessarily is these things work, but sometimes they give you a huge appetite. These, what I'm saying? And it's like, oh, wow, out of vanity, I would have a hot flush over binge eating, just for me personally. And so I kind of juggle, what do I want here?
Right.
But what happened on tour was I lost my voice once in the middle of a gig in Tekapo and twice after a gig. And that's my livelihood, man.
Yeah.
And I teach it. So I was just so much shame. And it was just beating me up. And what I didn't realize when I got back, and it was an angel in every town, and the angels were telling me, oh, have you had a Dutch test? Oh, all these people, all these angels aligned themselves. Were
they generally women of a certain age?
They fucking were.
Yeah.
And that's what an angel is.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying anyway. So, they manifest in any form. And yes, there were lifesavers who were men, but predominantly women, actually, I've got to say. Absolutely. But one of the things I loved, actually, naming them, this wonderful woman, Vicky Sutton, who asked me, do you need me to do anything for you for a gig in Te Awamutu? And I said, get me a doctor's appointment. I went in there. I said to the doctor, right, here's my shopping list. I need prednisone because just in case I need it, I know that vocalists take it. It's a steroid, but I was just saying, when I did have really bad period cramps, one thing that always worked for me was naproxenic. And so he found out what the generic was and gave me that on prescription. He gave me some anti-anxiety that might help with the sleeping pills, but with sleeping, because before I went, I just got Zopiclone. And that's the thing. It's like, I have no shame. We're just talking survival here.
Yeah. Zopiclone is, because I've only ever got that before for travel. So I love long haul travel and just take a sleeping pill. It's just revolutionized it for me. But I try not to take it too much at home because I don't want to be Michael Jackson.
Zopiclone is actually given a really bad deal. I mean, it's interesting to me because they say the only bad thing about it is that it's addictive, but so's coffee. I mean, whatever. The thing is, it's really spooky the way it will actually give you 6 hours and then wake you up. That's the freaky thing about it. That's when I go, whoa, white man's medicine, that just freaks me out. So this woman was so sweet for setting me up with that doctor's appointment. And I just basically felt so much better when I was already traveling with all my herbs and unctions and supplements, because I have just like shit tons of them. But then when I got back, and I was just plateaued, like I was shaking so hard I couldn't put my makeup on, and kati kati was the fine thing. I wrote about this for New Zealand Musician, column about voice, not just on the menopause. The last column was specifically about the menopause, but also when I melted down on tour, because I hadn't actually done a deep dive into menopause and actually really going, hey, let's deal with it.
Because we don't know what it's coming. Because we didn't know.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, really, like.
Yeah, and we personalize as well, especially the mood stuff. And we're always second guessing, and we're always actually going, oh, me. It's like, no, fuck it. What I am huge on is I'm an interfaith woman, because I actually do the white man's medicine, but I know that I get actual results from TCM. Acupuncture and druidic herbalism. I mean, and Ayurveda. I just love herbs. Herbs are the shit. They really are absolutely amazing.
Do you ever think any of it's a placebo effect?
Oh, fuck no. Right. No, because I've had it and I have had it. So, in fact, that's what they do. It's a process of elimination. They're always saying, do you really need this? Like, there's one thing that I had, O-lift, and it's like, nah, I'm not getting anything from this.
Right, okay.
But EPA, DHA, the fish oil stuff is just like, no, there's possibly for some people who suffer depression, it's the only thing that's going to take you out of it. But you have heroes doses. So the interesting thing about naturopaths is they know their shit. So they're going to probably actually say, take less of what is usually prescribed or take a hell of a lot more, because they know what you need. Like, for example, menopausal, you'd need more zinc.
Right.
But the chemist would say, oh, no, that's too much zinc.
Right, okay. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to pause you there because, as you say, you have taken the baton and run off with it. But I have other things to ask you first. Well, first of all, I'm going to do a longer introduction for you like I do. But the first thing I'm going to say is that if anybody out there has been to one of my shows, then they have been indirectly touched by you in a way, because I'm actually going to play a little bit now. I'm going to edit it in later. I have done a vocal warm-up before every one of my shows for 18 years. That was recorded in this room on a cassette with you. So every time before I go on stage, my husband, Matt, he goes, ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-bum, ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-bum, along with me. So it would have been that piano right there, 18 years ago, recorded on a cassette. And it's been Edinburgh, it's been London, it's been Canada, everywhere. Is your voice in my head every single show.
That is so beautiful. And you know what? Now it's embedded in the website.
Oh, you've got one in there, right?
Yeah. And it's actually, if anyone wants a warm-up, www.caitlinsmith.com/warm-ups. But then you got to come back to Mama, because I'd love to work with you. The show blew me away.
Thank you.
Blew me away. Your voice is freaking incredible. Absolutely. And it was so funny because it worked for a blind woman.
Yes.
And I was there with Ari, and he's blind, and it was like, well, fuck yeah, this is like a radio play.
Yeah. But anyway, here's my longer introduction for you.
Okay.
Caitlin Smith was born in 1971 and grew up in Auckland and had a bit of a tough time at school, as her teachers were not sympathetic to her eyesight issues, which is something I read in an article, and that she has 5% vision in one eye and 10% in the other. Her house, though, was always full of music, and she started piano lessons at 6. And it is safe to say that music and poetry are her life. She has coached such people as Neat Mystic, the D4, and Anika Moa, to name but a few. She has appeared all over the bloody show with her bands, the Fondue Set, Caitlin Smith's Imaginary Band, and the Caitlin Smith Group, etc. She's performed at Christmas in the Park, has sung at hundreds of weddings, at the Silver Scroll Awards, has lent her voice to one of my favourite jogging tracks, as we said before, and in so many other places, including backing tracks for New Zealand Idol, Ben Lummis. She has been really open about her struggles with self-confidence, which is very crazy to me because your voice is fucking amazing, lady. But also, I get it. I understand. And has recently also been open about dealing with the effects of menopause on her voice, as we heard, which is a little terrifying to me as well. She has a column in New Zealand Musician, and in that magazine, on the release of her second album, Mark Bell declared her to be the most humble, passionate, spiritual, courageous, honest, articulate, funny, independent, dedicated, hardworking, and selfless artist I've ever had the pleasure of interviewing. Have you not read that?
Oh, I just forgot. I mean,
yeah. So no pressure. I would like the same sort of interview that he had. So please, yet again, welcome, jazz singing superstar Caitlin Smith. Hooray. So the first question I've been asking everybody is, what has your relationship with your body been like in your life, and what journey has it been on?
Gee, that's a good question, Penny. Okay. So I was a really, really, really gangly, skinny, scrawny kid and teenager. I was all legs. I was like a spider. I was all legs.
Baby giraffe.
Yeah. And I was really self-conscious because of that, because my sister was, she developed very, very early. And in fact, that gave her a lot of attention of her body, and she developed eating disorder when she was sort of mid-teens because she became the center of people's attention for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, hypersexualizing children, because that's what we liked to do.
Exactly, yeah. And she was a rhythmic gymnast as well, which tends to sort of have a very strange, idealized, contortionist idea of female. So I would compare myself to her unfavorably, and weirdly enough, she would compare herself to me unfavorably because I was so scrawny. But you know what? You don't know what you got till it's gone. Because I mean, like, I have fluctuated wildly in terms of my weight. But what I realized from menopause is I'm going back to scrawny. And I'm not, well, as in my ass goes. The stomach doesn't go, the fucking ass goes. All the shapeliness goes. And that's the thing that gets me. Because, I mean, I've been, like you say, I actually am sexualized on stage a lot. So a lot of people think that I am some kind of siren, vixen, femme fatale. And I'm totally, if they knew me and know me, I'm not. The passion they're ascribing to be some kind of Freudian sexual energy is actually spiritual from the music that I sing.
Performance.
I'm totally into the song and the songs and the message and the concepts of the song, not the performance at all, because I could do without performing. I could do without an audience. It's not why I do it at all, because I'm so pathologically terrified of performing and still to this day.
Yeah.
So my body, I would not say actually I do. I probably have dysphoria about my body, because I would just look in the mirror and I would just see what was wrong with it. I would not see what was right with it. I would look at myself and just hate on something that was so gorgeous. Yeah, being sexualized on stage, people see me as being a shapely person. And so when you lose your identity like that, it feels very, very strange, because it's like, will they still love me if I don't have a shape? Because you kind of go back to scrawn. That's what it feels like to me.
That's so, because that is the absolute opposite of most people that I've talked to. Most people putting weight on.
But where are they putting weight on?
Around their belly.
Yeah. Okay. So they're taking it off the hips and the ass, though.
Oh, okay.
And see, that's the thing for me, is like I'm also doing a lot of yoga, truth be told. And that's the thing about menopause, is actually to increase the resistance training. And you know what? For a dear friend of mine, actually my cousin's wife, Lara, she has become her ideal. She said, I want to be fabulous at 50. So she's actually running 5K a day. She'd never run before.
Wow.
Never run before. She's her ideal weight. She's actually making herself super, super healthy. And one of the things that actually is really good about the healing process is you actually have a reason to do it now. So I'm going to get woo-woo on your ass. So prep this one up. Gird your loins, hun. Clench your uterus, because one of the things that I love about astrology is it helps me understand myself and understand what's actually going on and how I can relate to what's going on.
You said astrology.
Astrology.
Right, yeah, okay. And I'm getting my lines.
Yeah, exactly. So you're starting to, your pelvic floor is going funny even, and anticipation. So the thing about Greek mythology, I loved classics when I was
I have a classics degree.
Yeah, baby! Yeah. Okay, so Chiron, the wounded healer. And Chiron is a dwarf planet, and he has an elliptical orbit between Jupiter and the unseen planets. So he goes past Uranus. But he's all about the father planets, if you want to call them that. His father was Kronos, Saturn, and he was rejected as a centaur baby because the sea nymph, and I can't pronounce her name, rejected him at birth.
Yes, but now, wait a minute. None of this happened.
Well, here's the thing.
Okay.
Here's the thing. It's it's called Jungian archetype. We can deal with this. We can deal with it.
Right.
The whole story I will not tell to you because it's incredibly boring. No, it's not. I find it fascinating, and so would you because you've got a classics degree.
You're saying it's an allegory.
It's a fantastic thing for what happens to every human because Chiron returns, that is, comes to our birth chart place every 50 years, so 50 to 51 years. But the interesting thing about where it fits in with menopause and andropause is that hits people at the age of 50, 51. As a rule, that's the mean age when it hits.
Yeah.
And that's when the Chiron in your chart goes back to the natal point of where it was. And so even if you haven't sorted out what your specific personal wound is, you're going to have to deal with the wounding or the healing of all of this tumult of the hormones. So it just forces people to go, dance, little monkey, dance. You're going to have to deal with whatever it is. And that's why I find Chiron so fascinating because it's like, okay, we're all going to have to deal with this. Possibly even if it doesn't affect you in quite such a brutal way as it did when it beat me up. It's actually it's all of the other things that we look at in midlife and ask ourselves questions about, am I where I want to be? And is this working for me? And are my relationships satisfying? And all the other things that would be self-questioning. Because it just gives us a little pause. It presses the button and says, okay, is this working? What can we do differently? And how can we help out? So, yeah, that's why I like my Chiron. I love my Chiron.
Right, okay. Now, I had a question from a while back talking about, like, because it's so interesting to me, and this I don't know if this is going to be, I don't think it's offensive. I don't know. That you had so much problem with your body, etc. Like, when your sight is so diminished, you can, the comparison to other people is not as sharp focus as it is to other people, but that still gets in there. That conditioning still gets in there. Would you say? Is it societal conditioning?
It's just a really good question.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, it's like, so body consciousness and dysphoria is not so much about what it looks like because life isn't what it looks like. That's the interesting message of blindness and what I consider sighted privilege and blind pride, which are two things that I really want to make go global. This is my dream. Because how you feel about your body, if I perhaps had better vision, I would actually be able to appreciate the things that most hit people. Like maybe I'd be able to look into my eyes more easily, which is what people do.
Yeah.
Apparently the eyes have it. We know this, but it would be like my own sense of shaming. So I have big shame. I can't see people's looks. So that's a plus and minus. It kind of neutralizes out. It means that I can't see people's looks of appreciation, but I also can't see people's looks of disdain. And the same thing goes to audience response. So I'm never going to change my show according to an audience because why the hell should I? You can't see them anyway.
And as soon as I can see one person not having a good time, I'm just fixated on that person. And you don't have that. So that I would say is pleasing. Though for me, because it's a comedy, I can tell when they're not laughing.
Right. Yeah.
And that can be like really tiring. But
but you see that person has got all of their shit. They've got all of this stuff working for them. And we just can't. We can't. It's a struggle to get, struggle to keep. If you really focus on the person that you can't get, that's a complete waste of time.
Oh, and I know that, but it's just actually doing that. And also sometimes they'll come up and buy all of the fridge magnets and say how much they loved it.
Yeah.
So that can be confusing.
And that's the whole thing about a New Zealand audience is they're not demonstrative and they're not emotionally, it's not obvious whatever's going on. I mean, you might get a raised eyebrow and point of orgasm.
I don't know.
But that's about it.
I have had wonderful New Zealand audiences, terrible Canadian audiences, terrible Australian audiences, wonderful, the only place I haven't had a bad crowd is Southland. I have only had universally marvellous shows in Southland.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I know other people have not repeated that experience, but yeah, Invercargill, fucking off the chain, nuts people, the best.
But the thing about the body and the scrawny and what's actually happening is, the development of bingo wings, where you could actually literally take flight just by walking across the side of the room.
I know you're not going to listen to this because we don't, but you're fucking gorgeous, lady. You have got beautiful eyes. You have a wonderful stage presence. You've got a body so many people would kill for, but you can't hear that because...
Don't kill anyone, by the way. Don't kill anyone for my body. It's because if you only knew what was happening on the inside. I think back to, if I may, I'm all over the place.
Yeah, we
so
both
sorry.
are. Yeah.
But back to when I was 12 and this whole suicidal ideation thing, that's the thing that hit me at the end of the tour, where I was just going, no, I don't want to live. Right.
Really?
So
Fuck.
back to, the thing for me is suicidal ideation is really real.
Mm.
And I just sit with it. And what I loved is actually an interview with Pete Davidson, of all people, who is basically saying, you know what, I am depressed and suicidal. Like I wake up depressed, and I work with that. Right. And I'm going, oh, wow, I needed that. I so needed to hear that, because what we will do is we will not accept and, ACT, which is acceptance, commitment therapy. That's right. Basically accepting that this is, because I've just had to accept that, maybe it's hormonal, or maybe it's just the fact that when you do not see clearly the world around you, because the most debilitating part of my sight condition is the light sensitivity, for sure. So during the day, it's white out. The visual acuity is what it is, but I'm gaining vision, which is really disturbing to me because I don't want it. And it's like, I can't talk to anyone about that because it's a real identity thing, because I was beaten up for not being blind enough, and it's like, wow, 90% of blind people have some useful vision. It's only 10% that are totally blind, but they define the culture.
Right.
And so, we don't read Braille, but we do use canes, and God damn it, we need to, because it saved my life multiple times, but also hit by a woman in Dublin for using my cane. You've got no right to be using that, I can tell. You can see you're not really blind.
She actually hit you.
Yeah, it was absolutely shocking. But then it was an illustration, and maybe even macrocosmically, we can use this with menopause, is that you get hit by someone, but then a beautiful woman came down the escalator behind me and said, oh my God, I just saw the whole thing. She's absolutely crazy. Do you want a hug? And all right, so I actually got some lovely, I was still shaking. I went outside and cried to Will.
All the people to attack, don't attack anybody, people, but somebody who's saying, it's just like, what the it's like, I'm sorry, you're not limping hard enough. It's like just appalling.
Hidden disabilities are the worst.
Yeah,
they are the worst, because no one knows what you're going through, and it's like, wow. And we really need to still work on this. So this is another thing.
Yep.
The menopause is like that. So what happened when I got back from the tour is I went and did the Dutch test, which is a $550 hormone analysis, which is so accurate, and it takes a few weeks to come back. It's fucking costly. But you pee on 5 different pieces of paper at different designated times of day. And I was gigging at this stage, and I was just like tanked. And I didn't realize what was actually going on with what tanked meant. But it meant, as it turns out, on all the gauges, on this actual Dutch test, no progesterone, no estrogen. Luckily, I've got my testosterone still in an average sort of thing. So that's cool.
That is good.
But that's the reason why I was so incredibly tanked or stressed was cortisol, which happens when I'm performing, had no ameliorative
nowhere to go.
Softness from the estrogen, because that's what estrogen does, is helps us process and dampen the harshness of the cortisol.
Which is stress hormone, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. And the problem is little Missy over here has been sober and straight for 14 years.
Yeah.
So this is the thing that I was even openly telling audiences. This would be so much easier to handle if I was drinking.
Yeah.
Because it does take the edge off. It does work, people. I'm not advising it, but at the same time, it does work. And I couldn't do it because I have a problem with my drinking. Yeah. So I can't stop.
However, alcohol really exacerbates menopause. So you're ahead of that game because, all the books tell you to stop drinking. And I'm like, really? So you're already ahead of that one. So well done.
Oh, honey, that's so interesting to hear. Well, I also know that in my heart because it also in terms of depression and anxiety.
Absolutely.
Because that was the thing for me is like I couldn't handle the hangovers because I already have so much shame. And that's when the suicidal ideation came in.
Oh, I just wish you could I'll just do a Harry Potter with tracting Seamus. There you go. I've done the spell. Anyway.
Okay, now this is really good because I love the fact that you have this podcast. Okay. I really, really love this and I salute you, sister.
Thanks.
What I wanted to talk about was you mentioned the cognitive or the mind or the power over what we're thinking. So what happens is early onset menopause is exacerbated or brought on by trauma. So when I was actually up north, a woman who collected me from my accommodation to take me to sing at the gig, she had lost her son to a car accident at age 26 or something.
Ugh.
And that brought on her menopause.
Yeah, right.
And I had a very disturbing relationship, very, very abusive relationship. And the guy I was in a relationship was also an abuser. And that's when I stopped bleeding. And that's when the menopause started. So that was actually directly a consequence of, I think, my body just going, oh, you don't need this. You really don't want to bring any children into this world.
Right.
Not with those people in it. And that, I guess, was relatively early because I'm 50 now and I haven't bled in 5.5 years.
Oh, wow. It was that early.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. I didn't
Is
realize
that early?
that.
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's quite early to actually stop your menses.
Right.
Yeah.
So what is interesting, though, is about, I'm pretty, you know how I said I straddle the two worlds of naturopathy and natural healing and white man's juju. So I was offended when I was hot flushing and I went to what was then Cicada, which is a health food store. And this naturopath said to me, well, it is brought on by what you're thinking. So a hot flush can be brought on by what you're thinking. And I went, lies. Didn't believe it. And it's like, oh, you watch. You know, so this will be something for you to have fun with, which
but I don't think it always is, right? That's the thing.
No, not at all.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. But that doesn't dismiss it.
Yeah.
And so what is really interesting is just to become cognizant of when you are having thoughts that will then
translate,
exacerbate or bring on these kind of things. And also, they're called hot flushes. But I'm confused. Is it hot flashes or hot flushes?
It's both.
Okay, good. I'm so glad because I just thought, whoa, what's going on?
I say hot flashes. I think my mother said that. So that's why I say hot flashes. But I actually think it's more of an American thing.
I think it is. Definitely.
But I quite like it. My mother calls it power surges as well.
Oh, nice. Oh, I like your mother.
I thought you'd like that. Power surges.
No, that's absolutely great.
Yeah.
It definitely doesn't feel like that. But, you know, the thing that was really disturbing to me, and I'm actually glad that I wrote the column about the menopause affecting the voice and the change because, honey bunch,
yeah,
it's all in the column there.
Right.
But I was cursed in Wellington, protesting on the steps of Parliament to have free taxi fares for people who have total mobility cards. Currently, it's actually 75%, and it was 50%, but we're heading in the right direction. But I sang on the steps of Parliament. It was really amazing. And I sang higher than I'd ever sung since I was 16, so that was absolutely amazing. But the night before, I was completely down as down. This is at the end of the tour. And this woman said to me, oh, you're going to have to stop singing because you can't sing through the menopause.
What?
Okay. Yeah, bullshit.
Tell Jackie Clark.
Tell fucking Tina Turner.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. How am I doing here? How am I doing? And the thing about what she did, though, is she planted the seed of self-doubt and of just, what's the word? Despair.
Yeah.
That's the word. That's why I was forgetting it. So I read up about it and I realized there's so much behind the paywall. So there's so much that's not open source about people talking about singing and menopause.
Yeah, I had never heard of this. Yeah.
So, you know, they will tell you all of the horrible things that will happen. But then they won't say what you can do about it. Or they can say, hey, I'm a vocal coach, come to me for lessons. And it's like, no. That's the reason why I've done 65 columns for New Zealand Musician. They don't pay me. You don't pay to read it.
They don't pay you?
Source. No.
Oh.
In fact, I shouldn't be saying this, but most of my best work is probably done just talking to random strangers or people coming around to mine for cups of tea.
Right.
Because I want to do what I do. I mean, I believe there is a huge gap for people who need support because so much of psychotherapy has become professionalized, academicized, monetized. And really what happened to the wise women, to the healers, where you would probably present a koha, but certainly, you know, and I'm not saying don't pay me as a vocal coach,
yes.
but what I'm saying is, you know, I have this personal drive to share whatever was useful for my healing, and that's why I'm going to get it out to as many people as possible. And I realized from that, you know, with what was going on, is turns out it was possibly a temperature change that was the reason why I lost my voice in Tekapo.
Because of what actually,
fall below.
How did it manifest in your performance?
You got nothing. So
just no power, nothing.
No, nothing, no voice. It goes. So that was what happened after, and I was making it superstitious and thinking it was Joni Mitchell's Coyote, because in 2 instances when I went to take a break, that was the last song before I took the break, not realizing, hey, here's me stripping down for my costume changes, stripping down to nothing, and then putting on stuff, and that's the time. And I actually do it a lot. You can actually see there's some footage of me when I'm performing in Reefton, and I'm putting my hand on my chest to warm it up, because what happens is I just get around about my whole décolletage, all of that area becomes cold and sweaty and clammy and just seizes. And so my next column's actually about relieving tension, because, premenstrual tension is tension, right? And that's all related to hormones. So what I'm doing is I'm really looking at how it manifests, as you say, and what can then happen, because I'm discerning and realizing that perhaps it wasn't like mega flushes that were making me lose my voice. It was possibly a change in temperature such that, all of the opera companies knew that you would never catch a chill. So all of their divas would always have scarf upon scarf upon scarf around. Did
you have warm enough changing rooms?
Hell no.
Yeah. And, I've complained to Arts on Tour about that before.
See, that's the thing that I reckon did it.
So that did it, right?
Yeah. Because it happened at Wynyard Grill in Auckland, and I was kind of clocking it and witnessing. But the interesting thing about that is, like, everyone thought it was a setup to have then had this wonderful woman who was studying voice at Auckland University. She was there to check me out, and I just handed her the mic and said, "Here, you take over."
Right.
I'd never heard her sing, because it just went. But then at the same time, you know what? All of this is for the learning. Joni Mitchell, life is for the learning. And I'm really grateful that every single angel who was on tour was on tour. Because, and to this day, I'm so grateful for every little piece of wisdom. But my God, some of them were so upsetting. Like, at Katikati, this woman, and I don't know, it's around here somewhere, gave me a book called The Menopause from 30 to 90. And I was just like, what? I can't cope with that much, man. I was looking for it before. So no, I mean, I couldn't cope with it that long. But it is really interesting where people can't properly give you time frames. I mean,
absolutely. I mean, it's so individual to each person too. So, but did you know anything about menopause at all before? No. Did your mother talk to you about it?
No.
Never?
No.
How was she at talking about body stuff? Like periods?
Terrible.
Right. Yes, this is a common theme as well.
So I'm not blaming her.
No, it was the social mores of the time.
In fact, your lady bits were called parts.
Parts, yes.
As in, I guess it was private parts, but parts.
And private parts, not parts. I'm making the parts very public. Not completely public, but
public
just
parts.
Public
Ooh.
parts. This is like public parts.
Name my next album.
Public parts. I did a show called Hot Pink Bits, and it's just unfortunate. It seems to have come true. Do you know what happened to your mum in her menopause? Has she ever
asked about that?
Yes.
And I don't think it was that bad.
Right. So that hasn't stuck.
No, because she hasn't really, talked about it as a thing. I think of her generation, she's 88. I think there was just a lot of you'd keep everything to yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah, right.
About it.
So yes. So then now you have made an appointment with the doctor, but you couldn't get one for 6 months. Well, when did you make this appointment? September.
Earlier in the year. Earlier in the year, I'm going to say about February, and the soonest they could make it was September with this one doctor. And so then I went with the 2IC, and that was the 30th of June. But you know what? I don't even know if I'm going to go ahead with that. It's $400 and something. And do I really need HRT?
I don't know, except I've been doing this a lot, and there are a lot of women who would just... they proselytized from the rooftops about how much they love HRT. So I say don't be closed to it, because it is balancing hormone. It's Western medicine, all of that sort of thing. So I say go through with it, because it's been such a big impact on your life. So you may as well, if you can afford it, you may as well, and this is interesting, isn't it? It's taking you that long to get a private appointment. But if you have all the tools in your arsenal, you can then decide. Do you know what I mean?
I had the mental picture of all the tools up my ass then at that point.
That's a whole... Well, you could put estrogen suppositories in, I'm sure. But okay. I think transdermal patches are better. Because also HRT has come a long way. And progesterone is very good for, I think, the mental acuity and things like that. And mood stabilizing and things is with the progesterone side, I think. But I'm not 100% because I haven't looked into it too much yet for myself. But I've learnt a lot about it. And they're like Peter Mathias says it's the best thing in the world. Asta from Good Morning loves it. So I don't know. And you absolutely don't have to take it. Like Pinky Agnew didn't want to take it. She stopped taking it. Jennifer Wood-Leland didn't like it at all. But how will you know unless you try?
Yeah, true. And I mean, the interesting thing is the question would be, what are the side effects that you're feeling? But
Because it is preventative against heart disease, osteoporosis, dementia, all these things. And so that is quite a big, so some people sort of think about taking it for prophylactic purposes, but you just have to be in possession of all the facts. You would have to take progesterone as well, because I don't think you've had a hysterectomy. No, so you would have to take estrogen and progesterone to protect against cancer. And there is a slightly elevated risk of cancer, but it is incredibly small. But
I mean, the thing for me is like complementary medicine is complementary. And, particularly with speaking of cancer, you'll have your chemo, but my God, do you have to have probiotics and all the other things that are going to help you because, we know the facts now. We know that basically chemo is just like napalm. I know that it's not analogous to
Definitely not.
HRT, but what is a prevalent attitude is a dismissal of naturopathy and complementary medicines when in fact truth will tell, and that's the reason why with fertility, they just had to give people acupuncture because there's just no denying its effectiveness. And it's just like everyone's just going, yeah, we know. We've known that for thousands and thousands of years. It's like those guys are ninjas and they really, really know their shit. And if you've got a bad one, you've got a bad one. That's not acupuncture's fault.
It's like when you hear a bad poet, you don't think all poetry is bad. But yet a lot of people do. A lot of people do. We've heard quite a lot of bad poetry between us, as well as good poetry.
Oh, you know what? I try not to judge.
Well, you're doing a lot better than I am. I judge the fuck out of it.
Oh, no. I mean, like, the thing is, actually, I think the reason I don't judge is because for me, I've been actually performing with Poetry Live since the mid-80s. So I've actually been...
Sorry to interrupt. Poetry Live is a weekly ongoing poetry open mic that's been running in Auckland for 40 years. So just for those who don't know, but sorry, back to the story.
Yeah, and I actually had the most wonderful privilege of being the first person who was both guest poet and guest musician. So that was actually a really amazing thing because poetry for me, I feel like can deal with the subjects that a song can't. Because song, okay. I mean, very much so. As well as the poetry is easier than making something into a song because you got to rhyme, you got to have melody and all the rest of the shit. But it's interesting because I don't actually necessarily write to things like menopause or my blindness or anything like that. I've written to being stalked since 1994 by 4 different individuals. Jesus. I've written about abusive relationships, codependency, alcoholism. I've written to those things. Yeah, I think there are still, even within ourselves, there are taboo.
I wrote a poem about menopause and I did it at WOMAD and it was amazing. Women just came up to me to tell me about their dry vaginas.
Oh, how wonderful.
And I was here for it, you know what I mean? Like, and that's just that whole thing. Whereas if you just put a little sunlight on something.
You're here for a dry vagina.
I like the fact that women felt that they could share and that they wanted to share because that's the thing. As soon as you scratch the lid off, then it's there and it's got sunlight.
Not in the same sentence as dry vagina, scratching the lid off things. I mean, my pelvic floor is just going so weird right now.
Right.
Just thinking about that. And when you see, there's the blessing of testosterone. I luckily still have the libido and that has not been my experience.
Yeah, and that absolutely can be. So have you managed to find other people to talk to about it?
I have friends, but we haven't necessarily sat down and talked about it per se. Because I think like what you were saying about poetry being really personal and everyone's menopause being really personal, it's kind of like, there's still that element of, but I've got my shit, everyone does theirs. I've still got my naprogesics every month, to cope with the pain or whatever it is. I don't know why. I should be more open maybe with talking about it.
That's funny, isn't it? You write a column about it. Like I'm sitting here talking on a podcast about it. But I have no problem talking to my friends, but my really close friends who are my age, we're not really there yet. So but I'm 48, right? So I'm not far behind and it's any minute now. That's the thing about it.
I actually think it's interesting that you do have the anticipatory thing because that's really helpful for exactly what we've been talking about of sort of just bicing up the younger woman. Yeah. Because everyone needs to know about it I reckon, well in advance.
Totally. We should learn about it at school when we learn about periods. You know, it should be like the full stop situation. But I think I'm probably a bit too immersed in it because then I start seeing menopause and, you know, like, oh, I've got a sore finger. Is that because of lack of estrogen? No. So, you know, you can be too over-prepared.
Oh, gosh, yes.
And potentially that's where I'm at. But, you know, I'm fine with that. I'm bringing it to the masses. Well, to my 200 regular listeners. Yeah.
God bless you, and consider Patreon.
So can you just tell me a little bit about sort of some ideas around your spirituality, and then we will get to what sort of remedies you like to use, etc.
So the thing that I found about accessibility is what you were speaking to about the anti-spiritual. Okay, so for me, spirituality has to be that lifeblood that is my life. It is actually, as a performer, as a songwriter, as who I am, you know, when it says believer in miracles or worker of miracles, it's like, yeah, damn straight. What's happened is organized religion has just completely colonized, corrupted, made inaccessible people's direct contact and interface and accessibility or access, to their own spiritual selves. It doesn't need to be all of the things that we have projected onto it, like, for example, a God figure or anything like that, is way more, for me, indigenous as a concept. So, you know, Earth Mama, Sky Father, no worries. Okay, that's not a problem for me. I will take any spirit form, you know, great creator, not a worry. But what I find is there's horrible industries that are exploiting people by saying it's spiritual to wear the right yoga pant or to do all these things, which are just like money making
snake oil.
They totally are. And it's dilettantism. It's like spiritual dilettantism. And that's another thing that I want to give access to in terms of the God concept, because for me, God is love, love is God. So that's it. If you say you don't believe in God, you don't believe in love, because that's it. Basically, it's love.
No, I don't believe in anything, and I'm fine with that. I believe in nothing.
So you don't believe in love?
I believe in humans and relationships and connection. But I don't believe that there is any creator. I don't believe in anything except physics for why we're here and biology.
Yeah. I mean, that for me, I do believe in love. I actually think love is this fantastic force that people really are possibly unaware of, because it's kind of been trivialized and it has been sung about so often.
Just a touch.
Poetry. Yeah. But in a way that actually has kind of like has devalued it, because people are just going, oh no, I love chocolate or what have you. And they're not realizing, you know, like I had an amazing student who was a doctor who fell in love with the head of medicine of a university in Australia, moved over there. And when we met up, she said, you know what? The thing that is most healing of all is love. And I said, look, I could say that in a song, but if you went on record saying that, you could change everything. Because, you know, we know that if Putin had a bit more love,
Jesus Christ,
we know that actually everyone needs it. Actually, and if you're just dealing with the science of it, yes, that has been proven that we do need it.
Yeah. I mean, it's not. I do believe in. You know, I love my husband. I love people, but I don't think that's driven by any sort of spiritual thing apart from our own energies.
Yeah, exactly. Because what you're talking about is your definition of what love is doesn't define it as the spiritual, but that doesn't even matter. Yeah. So it's all semantics, in my opinion.
Yeah, and as long as we don't kill each other over it, who gives a shit? You know what I mean? Like that's That's where Putin's fallen down.
Yeah. Because that is, once again, it's about that personal interface that has nothing to do with anyone else. And that's the reason why the remedies and the healing journey that we're on, whatever works, baby. It's like
wildly personal.
John Lennon's Whatever Gets You Through the Night.
Exactly. So what is getting you through?
The Sopoclone. Specifically? Yes. You want to know what gets me through the night? That gets me through the night.
Okay. But so apart from that, so you're taking, what are your remedies that you're having so far for menopause?
Oh my God. Okay. So chaste is amazing. So the chaste plant.
So chaste plant.
The chaste plant, the chaste tree is absolutely incredible. And it's also really good for PMT too.
Okay.
So it's just actually that is the thing that you would be using if you did have the painful periods.
Okay.
So also black cohosh is the shit.
Yeah, that's supposed to be good for hot flushes.
Totally.
Scientifically proven and all.
Yes, exactly,
Yes.
darling. It's just science takes a while to sometimes.
Sometimes it does. And especially if there's not a lot of profit in it, they don't give a shit. Okay. So black cohosh, yes.
Black cohosh. So then also I realised from the Dutch test and from the naturopath is all the deficiencies that I had in terms of iron and in terms of vitamin D and the B, because I've been vegetarian since 1989. And I take zinc for sure, which is also really good for menopause. C, I take lipospheric C every day. Actually, in terms of like deflector shields are up, I haven't had the COVID, and also
snaps.
Everyone around me have had it.
Yep.
Like everyone around me has had it.
We're doing well.
Yeah.
We are.
Yeah.
I think I don't want to say a dying breed.
Winning.
Yeah. We're a living breed.
I don't see that as a moral judgment or anything like that.
100%. Yeah.
But I do have things like the Virilex attack. I do have golden seal root and echinacea tincture. There are other things like D3K2 is a really good supplement for vitamin D. A lot of people are deficient in D.
Okay.
Yeah, and I have like a drawer full, and I think it's like about kind of 15. And if I were actually...
A day?
Supplements, yeah.
Wowzers.
I know. But the EPA DHA, the fish oils, are fantastic.
Right, okay.
And so is SAME. I don't know what it stands for, but it's a really long word. And, things like L-theanine and gotu kola and pine bark are actually not the gotu kola, but Tulsi teas have an amazing range that are just so medicinal and so fantastic. So the sweet Tulsi rose to get you to sleep at night is the shit. But, and you will remember from way back in the day, my pantry is just full of tea because I cross-addicted from alcohol to tea.
Right.
And there's this wonderful drink called arepa. And I met the guys who set it up at the food show. And that's black currant juice. And they sell it at the supermarket with L-theanine and pine bark in it. So that's for cognitive function.
Okay.
So that's the shit. You never need to have any brain fog if you've got gotu kola. That's so good. Also, herbs. Talk about super herbs. Damiana, which is a really amazing herb, has 4 qualities: anti-anxiety, antidepressive, anti-bedwetting, aphrodisiac. Who knew? Amazing.
And there's the thing with the HRT, right? HRT will cost you $5 for 3 months. Unless you get the progesterone that you have to pay for. So there's the difference that way.
There's actually also over-the-counter hormones that you can get, which is like
the compounding pharmacy ones?
The DHD, whatever.
Yes, that's what I thought you were talking about with the fish oil. But yes, DHEA. Yeah.
Christ. See, you've become such an expert, darling. I'm so proud of you.
I have, thank you. Right, okay, so you have a regimen.
I do. And actually, then sometimes I just forget about it because the big one is the rabbit poos of the traditional Chinese medicine for, I can't pronounce it, but it's for heart and lung. And I just need that because, I wasn't able to breathe. And like I was saying to you before, I couldn't wear a bra.
Yeah.
Anything actually inhibiting my boobies with an underwire was just like, and I'd even take it off in the middle of a gig.
My word. Like if I did that, even though I wear corsets.
I'm playing the piano, darling. To do it while you're playing the piano is quite a skill.
You could play 4 different notes at once. Well, not because you can play lots of notes with your fingers, but you know what I mean. Your tits could play some notes.
I see you. I see you. Okay. Yeah.
Like if I took my bra off, there'd be some neck issues with the straining around the neck. Like honestly, these are very big jugs. So now, did you manage to find a fun fact at all for everybody?
Oh. Not really.
Well, let's substitute your fun fact with a song.
Okay.
Oh no, she's got something.
No, well, I wrote some things down.
Oh, right.
I'm just wondering whether or not I missed anything. For me, menopause represents the wise woman.
Mm-hmm.
And, when I think of the underserved community, when I think of Creative New Zealand and I'm thinking, all the boxes that people tick, I frickin' am serving an underserved community because women disappear.
Yeah.
Like as in, I would never be appealing to the, what do you call that thing? The industry. I can't even say it.
Well, we're both doing our own thing and skating around wherever the fuck we want to be.
It's independent, but also I see things as being a differentiation between industry and community.
Okay.
And definitely in terms of the older woman, that just doesn't exist, particularly the older woman without children. Because for me, I feel as if this is a demographic that really is not understood, is very frequently underrepresented, represented, or misrepresented. I'm sorry, I'm really...
We're selfish, love. That's what we are. We're selfish. Which is bullshit. Like, I don't even understand that logic.
With the blindness, it's kind of really compounding things because I didn't consider myself capable of looking after myself, let alone other lives.
And I just never wanted to. So.
And, for me, that's one of my big, huge, massive pains and sadnesses.
That is enormous.
It's massive. Yeah. And I think that's probably another dimension to menopause is like, well, forget about it.
Absolutely. I can see that. That for me, it would be a welcome release. But for you, it's like a full stop, and that grief is... Sorry, I hope I'm not making you feel bad.
No. It's all good because, there actually is part of the menopause or the trauma, and it's more likely the trauma than the menopause because actually, which came first, the chicken or the egg? I couldn't cry for 4.5 years, and that's, not for want of any bad reasons to cry because there were plenty. But, what I realized, that underserved, underrepresented, I want that blind pride campaign, but I also do want to have this next double album, which has 20 songs that I've written since 2009, which is when You've Reached Your Destination came out, that they are talking about the human experience, but not just the human experience. There's a song that I wrote, which is called A Life Worth Living, which is very much the female protagonist. And it does speak to some really interesting sort of codependent behaviors. And it's epic. Like, my songs are so epic. That is what has happened, is I'm writing these crazy songs that have just gone so, like, they sing me.
Right.
And it's like, where the hell did that come from? But I'm not fighting it because it's actually awesome. I could give you a taste.
Yeah, give us a taste. Okay. And but I would give you a high five pledge that we shall not disappear.
Okay then. We're not disappearing.
We're not going to disappear.
I'm feeding little piggies on sweet strawberries, but I'm not doing that anymore. I'm staying too long where I don't belong, but I'm not doing that anymore. 'Cause there comes a time when you realize gotta draw a line in the sand. I've been procrastinating what I could do today, but I'm not doing that anymore. I'm making excuses to keep on using, but I'm not doing that anymore. 'Cause there comes a time when you realize you gotta draw a line in the sand. And if you cross that line with me, there'll be consequences beyond belief. And I ain't joking, I'm gonna do, 'cause I'm sick and tired of wanting you. I've been denying the truth on out and out abuse, but I'm not doing that anymore. Over tolerating other people's hate, but I'm not doing that anymore. 'Cause there comes a time when you realize you gotta draw a line in the sand. I know the tide will wash away every mark I make, but I'm scared of attack and push back, and I'm too afraid to state what's really going on. Is that I've gotta change, step up to the plate and be brave. I'm feeding little piggies on sweet strawberries, but I'm not doing that anymore.
That's right. I'm going to come in back here. Yeah, bring that back over here for the end. Right, thank you very much for your beautiful song. Is that what's going to mean? Was that on your last album or on your...
No, that's coming up. That's not even recorded.
And you can't listen to your last album on Spotify, but it is on Bandcamp.
Oh, yes.
I purchased it.
And oh, thank you.
That's all right.
That is, if you go to bandcamp.com/Brave Kate and Smith.
Yeah, and that's what I like about Bandcamp, because you get a lot more money from that, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Considerably.
Right, is there anything else that you wanted to say at all around menopause?
No, I mean, I think
you've said quite a lot.
I have said too much, I think. I've already said way too much. And I don't have any fun facts. I've just got my life experience.
Yep.
And in fact, you know, with the whole menopause and voice thing, that probably is a whole book. But I did like the fact that, hey, at least I got to write the column.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, good luck.
Thanks.
Keep being fabulous.
Oh,
I will try to attempt to remove shame from you as much as possible, and to instill self-confidence in you, because you are marvellous and you have a beautiful voice and you've made a huge impression on a lot of people. And particularly for me, for my singing, I remember one thing that you said to me, because I'm such a perfectionist, and you were like, you just said one thing, which was, you don't always have to be perfect.
You certainly don't. I even wrote a column called The Pit Bulls of Perfectionism.
And that's exactly what I am.
Really, really unhelpful.
So sometimes I'm on stage and I'm like, that was a shit note. But then I'm like, doesn't matter. Caitlin told me it doesn't matter.
It really doesn't matter, because, I mean, like, actually even the adjustments that you made, you know, the recalibration on the fly that you did of the performance that I went to, it was so funny. Like, we were laughing about the fact that you have no idea
what I was supposed to say.
When you forgot the lines, that was so organically part of it.
And you know what? I have never asked for a line in my life. So you were maybe that's the beginning of the brain fog. I think it was because I haven't done a show for 11 months.
Exactly.
It was.
It's not brain fog at all.
Yeah. And they say perfectionism is the enemy of the good.
It really is.
It really is. And on that note,
baby.
But this podcast is perfect, and you were a perfect guest. I can't even say it.
I was a perfect goat.
You were a perfect ghost. Ghost. Right. Okay. On that note, goodbye. Thanks so much.
Darling.
Bye.
Love you.
So that was the incredibly open and very tuneful Caitlin Smith, who, as I say, has been a presence in my head as I warm up before every single show of mine for the last 18 years, which, though I am in no way spiritual, is still a connection we share, where she's basically reminding me to calm the fuck down. And it's a religion in a way, because it's a ritual, but yeah, a religion without all that hatred of people that are a little different and things like that. Check out her vocal warm-ups and her music and gigs at caitlinsmith.com. The link will be in the show notes. Thanks so much for stopping by to Showy Ovaries. Follow me on all the socials. Come and see me in Belmont on the North Shore with my Austin musical, Promise and Promiscuity, on June 22nd and 23rd, and in Waihi with Olive Copperbottom on June 25th. Tickets for both on iTicket. There's an update coming soon for Vulva News Network. Theme tune. I've been to see specialists and I'm taking various pills and things, and I'll update you soon. But till then, stay juicy, everyone. It's been Showy Ovaries. Bye-bye.